In 1995, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society produced over 1 billion magazines annually in more than 300 languages. Their printing facilities in Brooklyn operated 24 hours a day, making them one of the largest publishers on the planet. The Watchtower and Awake magazines appeared 24 times per year, with peak circulations exceeding 40 million copies per issue. This wasn't just a religious organization with a publishing arm, this was a publishing empire that happened to be a religion. 30 years later, those magazines publish 3 times annually. The Brooklyn facilities have been sold for approximately $2 billion. The printing presses that once defined the organization's identity have been dismantled or sold. And in upstate New York, a new facility is under construction. A 249-acre media production complex equipped with LED walls, cinema-grade cameras, and virtual production technology identical to what Disney uses for The Mandalorian. This is the story of how that transformation happened, where the money went, and what it means for an organization of 8 million members worldwide. The first indication of change came in 2008. The Watchtower Society announced that Awake magazine would reduce its frequency from monthly to bi-monthly. The explanation was straightforward: rising paper costs, printing expenses, environmental considerations. It seemed reasonable, even prudent. But it wasn't an isolated cost-cutting measure. It was the opening move in a systematic dismantling of the organization's entire print infrastructure. By 2013, both magazines dropped to monthly publication. In 2016, they reduced to 6 issues per year. Today, each publishes just 3 times annually, an 87% reduction from the 1990s output. The study edition of the Watchtower continues monthly, but increasingly as a digital-first publication with print runs dramatically smaller than before. During this same period, the organization began selling its Brooklyn headquarters. Between 2004 and 2017, all 34 acres of prime New York real estate were liquidated. Public records show sales totaling approximately $2 billion. The iconic Watchtower sign that overlooked the East River since 1969 came down. The factory buildings where those billion magazines were printed became luxury condominiums. The entire administrative and production infrastructure relocated to Warwick, New York, a facility notably lacking the extensive printing operations that characterized Brooklyn. Branch offices worldwide followed the same pattern. The Canadian branch closed its printing facility. Britain scaled back dramatically. Japan, Germany, and dozens of other countries either shut down or severely reduced their printing operations. Thousands of Bethel volunteers who had dedicated their lives to printing departments were reassigned or sent home. The official narrative emphasized efficiency and consolidation, centralizing operations to eliminate redundancy. What wasn't emphasized was the financial restructuring this enabled. When the organization operated as a publisher, costs were clear and direct: paper, ink, machinery, maintenance, shipping, warehouse space. These expenses appeared on balance sheets as operational costs funded through donations. The membership understood the transaction. Their contributions supported the production of literature they received. The digital transition changed this equation fundamentally. In 2011, jw.org launched as a simple website hosting digital versions of printed publications. By 2014, it had evolved into something more ambitious: JW Broadcasting, a dedicated video platform producing monthly programs filmed in custom studios with professional production values. Congregations received instructions to install screens for meetings. Members were encouraged to bring tablets instead of printed books. Video content began appearing in meeting programs, not as supplements but as primary material. This shift transferred costs from the organization to individual members without explicit acknowledgement. A tablet costs $300 to $800. Data plans run $40 to $100 monthly. Streaming video during meetings consumes significant bandwidth, expensive or prohibitive in many countries. The organization's production costs decreased while members' access costs increased, but this redistribution of financial burden happened silently, framed as technological progress rather than economic restructuring. The savings were substantial. Eliminating most print operations removed hundreds of millions in annual expenses. The real estate sales generated $2 billion in liquid capital. Branch consolidations reduced overhead across dozens of countries. The organization had successfully transformed its cost structure while simultaneously accumulating unprecedented capital reserves. And then came Ramapo. The Watchtower Society purchased 249 acres in Sloatsburg, New York, at 155 Sterling Mine Road. Initial announcements in 2018 described a new training and production facility to house volunteers and support organizational operations. The language was vague, bureaucratic. But construction permits and architectural plans revealed something more specific. Multiple sound stages, post-production facilities, editing bays, and virtual production stages equipped with LED wall technology. Virtual production represents the current frontier in filmmaking technology. Traditional green screen filming requires actors to perform against blank backgrounds, with digital environments added later. This creates problems. Lighting never quite matches, actors can't see their environment. The process is time-intensive and expensive in post-production. Virtual production solves this by using massive LED walls displaying photorealistic environments in real time. The LED panels emit actual light that naturally illuminates actors, integrating them seamlessly into the scene. It's faster, more convincing, and allows directors to see final results during filming rather than months later in post-production. It's also extraordinarily expensive. A professional virtual production stage costs between $5 and $20 million depending on LED panel size, resolution, and configuration. The panels used in high-end productions cost several $1,000s per square foot. The curved LED wall used for The Mandalorian reportedly exceeded $20 million. Ramapo's construction plans indicate multiple such stages. The cameras required for this technology are equally costly. Cinema-grade cameras like the ARRI Alexa 35 or Red V-Raptor, industry standards for theatrical and premium streaming content, cost between $50,000 and $85,000 for the body alone. Lenses run $10,000 to $40,000 each. A complete camera package with necessary accessories approaches $300,000. Professional productions use multiple camera bodies. Beyond cameras and LED walls, the facility requires extensive post-production infrastructure. High-end editing workstations, color grading suites, audio mixing studios, visual effects render farms, massive data storage systems for the enormous files generated by high-resolution video. Each component represents significant investment. A fully equipped post-production facility can cost tens of millions of dollars before a single frame is shot. The total investment at Ramapo likely exceeds several $100 million, possibly approaching or surpassing $1 billion when construction, equipment, and operational infrastructure are fully accounted for. This isn't speculation based on inflated estimates. These are standard industry costs for the technology being installed. You cannot build virtual production stages, equip them with cinema cameras, and establish post-production facilities at a discount. The technology costs what it costs. This raises the central question. Why does a religious organization need production capabilities equivalent to a major film studio? The surface answer, that video effectively communicates religious messages, doesn't justify this level of investment. Effective religious video content can be produced with equipment costing a fraction of what's being installed at Ramapo. Churches, ministries, and religious organizations worldwide produce compelling video content with cameras costing $5,000 to $10,000, editing software under $1,000, and basic lighting setups. The equipment at Ramapo isn't for producing good religious content. It's for producing content indistinguishable from commercial entertainment. The investment signals an intention to compete directly with streaming services, social media, and professional entertainment for attention and engagement. This isn't about making the message accessible. It's about making the message so professionally produced, so visually compelling, so entertainment-grade that members choose it over the alternatives available on Netflix, YouTube, or Disney+. The most ambitious product of this infrastructure launched in 2024, The Good News According to Jesus, a multi-episode dramatic series. Unlike previous video productions, short segments with volunteer actors and modest production values, this series involved professional casting calls seeking specific physical types and acting ability. Not volunteers, but talent scouting. Not simplicity, but production quality that could sit alongside commercial religious films and series. The decision to produce a sustained dramatic series about Jesus represents more than expanded content offerings. It represents a fundamental shift in how the organization understands religious engagement. When members read the Gospels, They form personal mental images. Jesus looks different in each reader's imagination, speaks with different cadence, displays emotions interpreted individually. These variations are inherent to text-based engagement. Scripture invites imagination, interpretation, personal connection to narrative. A dramatic video series eliminates this variability by necessity. Jesus now has one face, one voice, one specific physical presence. The disciples become distinct characters as portrayed by specific actors. Every scene's emotional tone is set by directorial choices, cinematography, musical score. Viewers don't imagine the clearing of the temple. They see a specific, carefully choreographed version with predetermined emotional cues. Music swells at chosen moments. Camera angles direct attention to particular details. Editing controls pacing and emphasis. This isn't manipulation in a sinister sense. It's simply how visual storytelling functions. But it represents a different kind of authority than written text. Published interpretations of Scripture can still be compared against the underlying text. Readers can notice what's emphasized, what's omitted, what's interpreted. Dramatic portrayals become primary experiences that are difficult to separate from the source material. The actor's face becomes Jesus's face. The scene as filmed becomes the authoritative version of events. Media psychology research consistently demonstrates that visual content creates stronger emotional responses but weaker critical engagement compared to text. Viewers remember how something made them feel more reliably than specific information conveyed. For an organization concerned with doctrinal consistency and uniform interpretation, this is valuable. When 8 million members see identical portrayals, hear identical teachings, and experience identical emotional cues, it creates shared reference points impossible to achieve through individual Bible reading. The risk is that consistency comes at the expense of personal engagement. Reading requires active mental participation, visualizing, interpreting, processing. Video is received passively. The complete experience arrives pre-interpreted. Over time, this shapes how members engage with Scripture itself. If the primary encounter with Bible narratives comes through dramatic portrayals rather than reading, the text becomes supplementary to the video rather than foundational. This pattern extends beyond dramatizations to all video content the organization produces. JW Broadcasting features monthly programs with governing body members speaking directly to viewers in sets designed to mirror professional broadcast studios. Multiple camera angles, professional lighting, graphic overlays, careful pacing, the visual language of news programs and talk shows. The production quality signals authority and credibility through familiar media conventions. The members themselves appear differently than their predecessors. Well-tailored suits, visible accessories, warm personal anecdotes, humor, direct eye contact with the camera. It's a calculated presentation designed to create personal connection. For younger members raised on YouTube personalities and streaming content, traditional distant authority figures seem irrelevant. By presenting leadership as approachable media personalities, the organization attempts to maintain relevance with a generation that expects direct, personal access to public figures. But this strategy creates inherent tensions. The organization has historically warned against personality cults and celebrity worship. Yet the current media approach necessarily creates recognizable individuals with distinct personalities and presentation styles. Children know governing body members by name and appearance. Members develop preferences for certain speakers. The organizational intent may be to maintain collective authority, but the effect is individual recognition and attachment. The financial implications of this transformation become clearer when examined against the organization's communications with members. In recent years, letters to congregations have emphasized financial constraints, requesting increased donations and explaining that expenses exceed available funds. Members have been encouraged to contribute through online platforms, set up recurring donations, and include the organization in estate planning. Simultaneously, the organization has faced significant financial losses in multiple countries. Norway revoked the Watchtower Society's registered religious status in 2022, eliminating substantial government subsidies. Similar challenges emerged in Sweden and other European nations where policies on shunning and medical decisions have led to legal disputes and financial consequences. These losses total millions of dollars annually. Yet construction at Ramapo continues without apparent budget constraints. Production technology purchases continue. Video content volume continues expanding. The contradiction is stark. An organization claiming financial pressure simultaneously funds infrastructure comparable to commercial film studios. The explanation likely involves both accumulated assets and operational restructuring. The Brooklyn real estate sales alone generated approximately $2 billion. Conservatively invested, this produces substantial annual returns sufficient to fund large capital projects while maintaining operations. Additionally, eliminating print operations removed hundreds of millions in annual expenses. Paper, ink, printing equipment, maintenance, physical distribution, all gone. The savings from this restructuring, over time, likely offset the costs of building and operating Ramapo. But there's a deeper issue regarding transparency and expectation. When the organization operated primarily as a publisher, the transaction felt direct. Donations funded production of materials members received. Books, magazines, brochures, tangible items distributed at no charge. The value proposition was clear. In the digital model, members donate for content accessed on personally owned devices using personally paid internet connections. The transaction feels less direct. Members fund production infrastructure they'll never see, for content delivered through systems they pay to maintain. The organization's investment in production capabilities reaches unprecedented levels while members' experience of what their donations purchase becomes increasingly abstract. This matters because it affects the psychological relationship between institution and member. When someone receives a magazine, they hold physical evidence of where their donation went. When someone streams a video, they receive an experience, emotionally valuable, perhaps, but intangible. The organization has effectively shifted from producing goods to producing experiences, and experiences are harder to evaluate in terms of cost, value, and necessity. The transformation of the Watchtower Society from publisher to media producer represents a calculated response to a genuine crisis. The organization is losing younger generations at unprecedented rates. Internet access has made information about doctrinal changes, failed prophecies, and policy controversies readily available. Second and third generation members can fact-check claims, read former member testimonies, and access historical documents the organization would prefer remained obscure. Exit rates among young adults have increased substantially over the past 2 decades. The media strategy addresses this by attempting to create an immersive ecosystem that competes with secular entertainment for time and attention. If content is sufficiently engaging, professionally produced, and emotionally compelling, members might spend their limited leisure time within the organizational ecosystem rather than on platforms where they encounter contradictory information. The goal isn't just to communicate doctrine, it's to capture and retain attention in a saturated media environment. This explains why the investment at Ramapo prioritizes production quality over quantity, entertainment value over didactic efficiency. The organization isn't trying to produce the most scripturally accurate content or the most theologically rigorous teachings. It's trying to produce content that can hold its own against Netflix, Disney+, YouTube, and TikTok in the competition for viewer engagement. The implicit acknowledgement is that doctrinal authority alone is insufficient to retain members. Emotional engagement through high-quality media becomes the primary retention strategy. Whether this strategy succeeds remains uncertain. The organization has bet hundreds of millions, possibly over $1 billion, on the assumption that professionally produced media content will solve retention problems created by doctrinal inconsistencies and policy controversies. It's a wager that emotional engagement can override cognitive dissonance, that entertainment value can substitute for theological coherence, that production quality can compensate for substantive problems. The evidence presents a clear picture. An organization that once produced over 1 billion magazines annually now produces 6 magazines per year. The printing infrastructure that defined its identity for over a century has been systematically dismantled. The assets accumulated during the print era, $2 billion from Brooklyn real estate, hundreds of millions in operational savings, have been redirected toward building media production capabilities equivalent to commercial film studios. The cost of accessing content has been transferred to individual members while the organization invests in LED walls, cinema cameras, and virtual production technology. This isn't merely technological adaptation. It's institutional transformation. The Watchtower Society is no longer a publishing organization that uses media to supplement its primary function. It's a media production organization that happens to be religious. The priority is evident in where the money goes. Not toward printing presses, not toward expanding educational programs, not toward humanitarian efforts, but toward production infrastructure designed to create entertainment-grade content. The implications are significant. An organization built on encouraging personal Bible study and meditation has shifted toward providing pre-interpreted, emotionally choreographed experiences that minimize individual engagement with source texts. An organization that preached simplicity and separation from materialism invests in technology and facilities that exceed what most commercial production companies possess. An organization that claims financial constraints simultaneously constructs one of the most expensive media complexes in religious history. The stated goal is to reach people more effectively in the digital age. The actual result is an organization that has redirected virtually all its resources toward competing with secular entertainment for the attention of its existing members. The presses are silent not because printing became unnecessary, but because the organization concluded that video content provides better control over interpretation and more effective emotional engagement than text ever could. Whether this represents progress or decline depends on what one believes religious organizations should prioritize. But the transformation itself is undeniable. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, one of history's great publishers, has become jw.org, a streaming content provider. The magazines are gone. The books are digital. And in their place stands Ramapo, a monument to the belief that Hollywood production values can solve problems of faith, doctrine, and institutional credibility. The question isn't whether this change is good or bad. The question is what it reveals about an organization's priorities when it chooses to invest billions in cameras and LED walls rather than in the printed word it once considered sacred.